our session today is about fluid and electrolyte balance, and we will focus in this our session about the different fluids, and as well as electrolyte and mineral balances, along with how their balance is significant, particularly to maintain homeostasis in the body. As water is our chief fluid, and not only the chief constituent but also the major solvent of the body. It makes up to 70% of the total body weight. So for human body it is highly essential, and we cannot survive without having water. Now, considering the different sources of the water, of course, the first and the major one is what we consume. So, drinkable water, or that include different type of beverages, teas, soft and hard drinks, and as well. So, if we consider drinking water or beverages percentage as an exogenous source, healthy adult usually consume 1000 to 1200 ml, or 1 to 1.2 liter of drinking water per day. Then the other exogenous source include the food that is carrying large amount of water as well. So particularly what we eat, that is giving us up to a liter of the water. Water intake, which we are having usually by our mouth, that is highly variable. It's not like that we definitely, or each single person is particularly consuming the amount or the value I have shown you, but it is variable, and these variability is dependent on personal and social habits, as well as climate conditions. So of course, if there is a hotter climate, the water consumption is high compared to more colder climate. As far as endogenous sources are concerned, we also produce water endogenously through the metabolic reaction. So main source of metabolic reaction that produces water is the oxidation of the food we consume, as well as electron transport chain process. And RF estimate, we produce metabolic water from 2 to 400 ml, or on average 300 ml a day. Now, how water is distributed throughout the body, considering different stages of the life or the gender, compared to the newborn, where we are having up to 80% of the water composition. Body comprises up to 80% of body's composition. We are having more water in an adult male compared to the adult female. And why it is like so? Because adult female carry a little higher percentage of solid compared to adult male. So the top two figures, right and left, are the pie chart where we are showing the body composition of adult male and female. Adult is shown on the left hand side, and adult female are shown on the right hand side. And you can see that we are having up to 33% of intracellular fluid in adult male. So overall composition of the water is roughly about 60%, whereas in female, intracellular fluid is less than 30%. So roughly it is like 27% intracellular fluid. However, as far as extracellular fluid is concerned, there is again a difference in adult male and the female. So in male, it is 21%. However, in female, it is 18%. Then there is another difference. If we talk about plasma fluid, then we are having up to 4 to 5% of plasma in male. However, the almost same or a bit smaller percentage exist in female. Then other body fluids are less than 1%. Considering solids, there is more solid in female compared to male. So what solids they are? So that could include protein, lipid, mineral, different metabolites, carbohydrates, and other stuff, where the protein is more abundant. However, that is also, uh, genetic and daily life habits, or eating habits, that these composition may vary. So solid composition may also vary. Now, what are these intracellular and extracellular fluids? So we do have compartment where we separate these two major type of fluid. Intracellular fluid, as name represent, this is the fluid that is present within cells or the tissue, and of course, its content vary depending on the type of the tissue. For example, muscle tissue composition of the water or the fluid is different compared to the fat one. So which type of the muscle is going to have more water content? Either the muscular type or the fatty tissues.
Muscular.
Muscular.
Yes, very good. So the muscle tissue are having more water content compared to the fat tissues. Then we are having extracellular fluid that is distinct due to plasma membrane. So there is a membrane that is separating intracellular as well as the extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid is of variable type. It could be interstitial fluid that is present, within the spaces in between, and its volume also vary. Then we are having the volume of the blood, then that vary between the men and the women, of course. Now, a very simple quiz or a very easy question for you. So if we are considering body water content, percentage of the content, then in which body the weight of the water or the percentage of the water is expected to be lowest? A well built
Fat woman.
Fat
Fat woman.
woman.
fat woman.
Fat woman.
Perfect, you are absolutely right. So a fat woman is supposed to, not supposed to, is definitely going to have lowest percentage of the body fluid. Then what functions body water is performing? Several function are performed by this chief or the major bodily fluid. It's involved in various biochemical reaction that ranges from, hydrolytic reaction and transportation. Now transportation is very much important, and it transports variable range of mineral, vitamins, and several components. So, and as well as the waste metabolites, as it is the major aqueous media, or water is the main source. So it is this transportation either happen through the blood or through tissue fluids. Another important function of the body fluid is to regulate body temperature and to maintain the body temperature to the normal one. So, as far as the component of the transport concerned, body fluid transport hormones, platelets, red and white blood cells, also enzymes, a series of enzymes. Then we are having several nutrients that are, transported from peripheral organ or the, vital metabolic organ to the CNS. That also includes, glucose as well. Then it is a major solvent. It is acting as a major solvent for electrolytes as well as for non-electrolytes. Then several other function what water is performing is facilitating digestion and eliminating, harmful stuff and indigested food as well. Water also serve as lubricant too. Now, how the balance is maintained, or how the homeostasis of the body fluid is maintained within the human body. So we have the capacity that what we take and we excrete, that body is trying to keep it in a balanced format. So water content remains stable over time. The gain is, of course, through absorption or through ingestion, as primarily absorption, and of course, that is happening through digestive tracts. Then we are having nutrients and ion that are absorbed again. Then we have osmotic gradient that are created due to positive absorption of the water. However, if we talk about where we are losing water, that the main source is urination. So we excrete uh, mainly about 50% of the consumed, either endogenously or exogenously consumed water through urination. And there could be multiple routes or routes for this excretion. Then we are having digestive secretions that are reabsorbed, similar to the ingested fluids. Now, considering input, just focus on the upper part of this tabular format, which I am showing. So the fluid, in order to keep the fluid balance, the source is, as we discussed, water content from the ingested food or the consumed food is up to, a liter. Then we are having liquid, which we are consuming from a liter to 1.2 liter. Then we are having, metabolic water that is produced. So overall, if we roughly consume, or the input is 2.5 liter, then that is mainly gained through these three main sources, either by ingestion, that include both source food and the liquid ingestion, as well as metabolic synthesis of water production. Then output include that we lose water, of course, roughly about 1.2 liter through urination. Then skin is another major source from where water is evaporating. So skin is the largest body tissue, and of course, depending on the climate, this evaporation rate or the volume will also vary. Then we are having lungs as another source of excretion or elimination of the water, and that is less than half a liter. Then we also lose water in feces as well, though its content is much less compared to urine and skin evaporation. However, it's still an amount of water we are losing through feces. Now, what are electrolytes, or going towards electrolytes? These are the substance which, when dissolved in any solution, they frequently dissociate into ions. These ions carry usually electric current or charges. So, and by definition, electrolyte is a substance that develop electrical charge, or charge, when they dissolve in water through dissociation process. The major electrolytes of the body are sodium chlorides or the potassium chloride. These are mainly the salts that are soluble in aqueous solution, and they rapidly dissociate themselves to produce ions that are positive as well as negative. And the concentration is usually expressed in terms of milli equivalent per liter. So the positive and the negative charge are basically known as cations or the anions. So in terms of positive charged electrolyte, that is a cation. Here, the example is sodium, that is a cation over here. However, if the electrolyte carries a negative charge, that is an anion, here the example is given as chloride, which is an anion or a negatively charged electrolyte. Then water molecule are very much attractive towards the ion, and they completely surround the dissociated ion, because they wanted to prevent the reunion of cations and anions. Otherwise, they are going to create this salt content, and higher the salt content, the more dangerous it could be for the human body. Now, how these electrolytes are distributed among the ECF or the ICF? What is ECF and ICF?
Ma'am,
Extracellular
extracellular
fluid and
liquid.
intracellular fluid.
Absolutely. So, what is the difference or the distribution, or you can say how they are differentially present in extra or the intracellular fluid of a human cell or a tissue? So we are having the major compartment, two major compartment that are intracellular or the extracellular. And of course, there is a difference in the electrolyte composition. Intracellularly, potassium concentration or the levels are high compared to sodium, which intracellularly is low. However, extracellularly, it's high, whereas potassium is low. Likewise, magnesium is higher in concentration or their levels are high intracellularly, uh, uh, similar to phosphorus. However, chloride and bicarbonate are rich in extracellular fluids. In order to maintain the balance, number of cations and the anions should be in homeostasis. They should be equals to each other. So how the cations and anions are distributed? So if you see, the extracellularly, sodium is high, that roughly comprise 140 milliequivalent, whereas calcium is 103 milliequivalent. Sorry, chloride is 103 milliequivalent extracellularly. Potassium and bicarbonate, they are also having different composition as a cation or a major anion intra or extracellular, extracellularly. Then we are having calcium, magnesium sulfate and biphosphate too. So if you see overall amount of total cation and overall amount of total anion, that are that is a number of 155 milliequivalent for both extracellular cation and extracellular anion. So the predominant one are sodium and chloride. However, intracellularly, extracellularly predominant was also sodium and chloride, and intracellular you will see which one is more predominant. Is it again sodium and chloride, or these are the different one?
मैम इंट्रासेलुलरली पोटेशियम ज्यादा होगा.
Absolutely. And what about the intracellular anion, which is highly abundant? HPO4 biphosphate, right? All right. So
Okay, ma'am.
overall, again, the total cation and anion composition or the content in intracellular fluid is again in balance. So the predominant one over here is potassium and HPO4. Now we are having a comparative analysis of different ions, cations and anions among extra and intracellular fluid. So if you will see the first one on left hand side, that is sodium ion, that is 14 times higher extracellularly compared to intracellular composition levels or the concentration. However, potassium is opposite to that, or even more high intracellularly compared to the extracellular levels, and so on. Then we are having not only the electrolytes, but protein and ion concentration as well, where you can see that protein and ions are higher in intracellular fluid compared to the blood plasma and interstitial fluids. However, other electrolytes that include sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium chloride, bicarbonate, and HPO4 or sulfate, then their composition is variable across the different type of fluids. What functions body electrolytes are performing? Of course, as they are well distributed across different components of the body, they are involved in performing various functions. So they create pressure, osmotic pressure. uh, what osmotic pressure is doing, it is facilitating to maintain the water balance across the different compartment of the body or cells. Sodium, which is the most abundant electrolyte in extracellular fluid. However, potassium is essential for normal membrane excitability and also for the nerve impulse. Chloride regulate osmotic pressure and assist in regulating acid-base balance. Calcium promotes nerve impulse as well as relaxation and muscle contraction. However, magnesium play an important role in heart, nerve, and muscles by involving in carbohydrate and protein metabolism as well as a storage source of energy. Then how the movement of electrolyte and the water is happening inside the body. The movement of these particles, electrolytes or minerals, along with water, this is happening by a process that is called diffusion, and the movement of these particle is usually happening down the concentration gradient, so from lower concentration towards the higher concentration. Diffusion can also happen randomly because it's a random movement where particle can move any direction. Then we are having osmosis. What is osmosis? Of course, osmosis is again the movement of water. However, this movement is now happening through a membrane that could be permeable, that could be semi-permeable. So if the movement of water is happening through the membrane, that is osmosis. However, if it is happening down the concentration gradient, that is diffusion. Osmosis is also the diffusion of the water that is happening selectively through permeable membrane. Is that clear? Any confusion between diffusion or the osmosis?
No, ma'am.
No,
Great.
ma'am.
All right. So then we are having osmolarity and osmolality. These are very similarly sound words. However, there is a difference. If you consider overall mole per liter of solvent, then it is osmolarity. However, if it is mole but per kg of the solvent, that is osmolality. Osmolality is controlling water movement as well as distribution in the body across different fluid compartment. Sodium and its associated ions contributing, these are the major contributor of plasma osmolality, and the osmolality is measured through osmometer. Then we are having active transport, which is the movement of the solvent, and again the movement of the solvent across membrane, however, by the expenditure of energy. As it is energy requiring process, it is known as active transport. Then in active transport, movement of the particle is up a concentration gradient. Filtration is, however, opposite. In filtration, fluid move through the membrane, of course, likewise to active transport. However, this movement is from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. So that's the difference. Now, if you will sum up this, the key points to remember is body, or which is normally the healthy body, is trying to keep its osmotic equilibrium in each particular compartment of the body. Then the a healthy human body carries semi-permeable membrane that allows the passage of the water, however, not the electrolytes. If there is any disturbance in osmotic equilibrium in any of the compartment, That will result in drawing water from the compartment of lower osmotic pressure, or the one which is the hypotonic, towards the one which is hypertonic, until that compartment or both compartment achieves equilibrium. The concentration gradient of potassium and chloride. Potassium tend to diffuse out. However, chloride always try to get enter into the cell, and the difference is making the electrical potential. So, for example, if we are having relatively negative inside of the cell, then the body will try to keep chloride ions out and potassium in, because the inside of the cell was negative. So, in order to keep the electric potential, cell will automatically try to throw out chloride. Cells also do not tend to accumulate sodium. If sodium rapidly enters into the cell, it is happening through a process of sodium pump. However, body or cell itself effectively or efficiently try to get rid of intracellular sodium. And the process is active transport. So cells actually, at the expense of energy, get rid of sodium out of the cell as much as possible. However, if sodium diffuses into the cell, the process that favors this mechanism is concentration gradient as well as electrical potential. So, if there is a difference in electrical potential, then a cell automatically try to diffuse or get in sodium, and if there is a concentration gradient, then the phenomenon also happen. Are we good so far?
Um,
Any comment, question?
yes, ma'am.
All right. So, going to start mineral balance. Minerals also try to keep, or body also try to keep an equilibrium between the ions that are absorbed and the ions that body excrete. So, the major ion that are absorbing is happening through intestine and the colon too. However, the excretion occurs through kidney. Sweat glands also excrete both ions as well as water. However, the excretion will be variable. And there are several factors. Some we talk about already, that are, affecting the excretion of ions as well as water through sweat glands or the skin. Then there is iron reserves that is mainly occur in the skeleton. So you can see that there is a mineral balance, and in order to maintain the mineral balance, how the digestive system as well as the kidney or the excretion system are connected. So ions mainly absorb through a small intestine as well as colon. Then we are having, reserves. First of all, that balance is kept intracellularly and extracellularly. Then we are having reserves, and the primary source of the reserves are bones or the skeleton. Then the main excretion system is through kidney, where we are from where we are mainly getting rid of excess of the iron. Then we are having sweat gland secretion, that is another side of iron loss. Here are some mechanisms that are summarized in the form of a table that shows that which mechanism is involved in the absorption of major electrolytes through digestive system. So sodium ions, these are channel mediated diffusion or co-transport or active transport mechanism that are facilitating the absorption of sodium ion. Then we are having calcium, magnesium, and iron, also phosphate and sulfate, where active transport is facilitating their, efflux or the influx. Again, potassium and chloride, as well as bicarbonate and nitrate, channel mediated diffusion or the carrier mediated transport mechanism is governing principle. Then we are having major function that is performed by the key mineral or as well as the primary route of their excretion. So we are having sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium, and other you will see on next slide. What is the daily recommended allowance? It is also given in the milligram in the right hand side column. Then we are having primary route of excretion, and in most of the cases you will see it's urine where they are mainly excreting out of the body. Their total content of the body is also given over here, as well as the major function performed by the sodium is membrane function, as well as serving as the chief cation in the body fluid. However, chloride is the chief anion of the body fluid, and it is facilitating the formation of hydrochlorides excreting via urine or the sweat, and daily allowance is 2300 milligram. Then we are having other trace minerals that include iron, zinc, copper, manganese, and cobalt. Their functions as well as primary route of excretion is also explained over here. So manganese and cobalt are solely or mainly excreted through feces compared to urine. However, copper, zinc, and iron, they are excreted via urine, or they can also, excrete via feces too. Iron, we know it's a major component of the hemoglobin, myoglobin, as well as cytochrome, whereas zinc is a cofactor, and of course, it is a part of carbonic anhydrase. Copper is acting as a cofactor also for the hemoglobin synthesis. Whereas cobalt is involved in transamination reaction as well as in vitamins, particularly vitamin B12. Now we are having some key points to remember from this mineral balance, that mineral balance is basically happening in the equilibrium where the ion absorbs are equals to ions excreted. Major ions which are absorbed is mainly absorbed through intestine or the colon. However, kidneys are the major source of excretion. Sweat gland also contribute in excretion of both ions as well as water. However, it could be variable. Then